Welcome to Block 18 Combination Star. This is the only block this in October for the Cheshire Quilters Guild 2018 Block of the Month. And what we're going to make with Combination Star is, first of all, we need 4 square and a square units. So we're going to take our triangles and we're going to sew them on opposite sides of the square and press them out. And then sew the another 2 triangles on the other 2 sides and press them out. So I'm going to go do that, and then I'll come back here and show you how to trim it up. So I've got my square and the square units piece, and so now I'm going to show you how to square them up. We need to square it to 4.5 by 4.5. Now I'm going to use the 4.5 inch end of my ruler, or the side of my ruler. It's marked in 1/2 inches. If yours is marked in doesn't have that sort of marking, then what you need to know is that the points are at 2 1/4 in each direction, and that the size is 4.5 by 4.5. So it's really the 2 1/4 inch at 1/2 inch are the 2 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch are the important things to keep track of. And so I'm going to center this up as best I can, and basically all I'm trimming off are the dog ears as I go along. So I trimmed 2 sides. Now I can put those 2 sides on my 4.5 inch lines, and I should be centered up pretty good to do the other 2 trims. And there we have our square and a square, and I have got all 4 of my piece. I just need to finish trimming them up. So I'll meet you back here to see what we need to do for starting with step 5. One last thing I want to say about the square and a square. You'll notice I don't quite have a 1/4 inch seam on this particular one. That this space is a little bit short. That's because I didn't sew a full 1/4 inch seam. I sewed a scant 1/4 inch seam, and so that's made my inside square too big and my inner seam intersections a little too small. So I'm going to make another one to replace this one so that I have my 4 square and the square units for the block. Okay, so here I've taken my rectangle and drawn my vertical into diagonal lines and layered it up with my other fabric. So now I'm going to go sew on both of these sides, cut it along the 3 and press them, and I'll meet you back here when I have that done. Okay, so I got my 4 half square triangles, and no, we don't want to trim these yet. What we do want to do though is to take a pair of each, take them in pairs and layer them together and nest those seams together, and that's why we press the seams to one side. And now I'm going to draw a diagonal line across from corner to corner across the seam, and one way I want to make sure it's perpendicular to the one that's there, so I'm laying a line on my ruler right along where I had stitched, and now I can draw my line across. I'm going to draw it extra dark so you can see it. Okay, I hope you can see it on this section. But now I'm going to sew on both sides of that. And I'm going to mark both pairs so that I end up with 4 1/4 square triangles. So I'll meet you back here when I've got them sewn. And after I sew, I'm going to cut it apart and press the seam. So I'll meet you back here if I've got them pressed. Alright, here are my finished units. Notice I furled the seams, and the print document this month includes some information on furling seams. Now I need to trim this to be 4.5 inches, and you can use multiple tools for it. My favorite is to use a Tucker Trimmer 1 for 4.5 inch, and because it's got the lines in both directions, so I can just lay those lines right on my seam intersections, and with very little difficulty trim my unit to a perfect 4.5 inches. My seams will come out right at the corners Okay, so there's one trimmed up using my Tucker trimmer. If you have a regular ruler, then we would approach it the same way. You're going to use a 45 line that goes through the corner of your ruler along one seam. And then this is the key thing. You need to make sure the seam intersection is in the middle of your unit. So in our case, it's going to be at 2 1/4 inches, and then we can trim our unit. Also another check on that is that the 4 1/2 inch marks are on the seam line out here and here. And I can trim 2 sides, rotate my unit, and then trim the other 2 sides. And now, of course, in addition to having the 45 on one seam, the 4 1/2 inch lines are along the edge. The 4 1/2 marks are here. This should still be at 2 1/4. And trim. Alright, so I'm going to trim up the rest of my units, and I'll meet you back here to see how to put the block together. Okay, welcome back. Now let's lay out our combination star. The bottom center, we have one of our quarter square triangles. Each corner uses a square and a square unit, and the center is our plain fabric star. Now the key thing is to make sure you position the half square triangles in the correct orientation so that we can get those nice star points. We also get the illusion of a square and a square here in the middle, which is echoed by the outer squares. So now we just need to sew it together. We can sew it together in rows. We've got 3 rows here, so those together. And when we do that, we're going to press the seams open, and then matching up the seams, we can sew them into the 3 rows together to get our star. So I'll meet you back here when I have it complete. And there you have it. Block 18 combination star for Cheshire's Quilters Guild 2018 block of the month. This is the only block this month, so see you next month for block 19 quartered star. Until then,